Welcome to the long game. I'm Ross Kagan, Regis Professor of Precision Medicine at the University of Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Sandy Weir, Tech Innovation Leader and Strategic Program Manager, joining from Edinburgh.
Well, on the long game, we explore the collision of cells, code, and capital in the Scottish life sciences sector. Sandy, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. We've made the podcast live, Ross, and of course, I'm spending all my time batting away book deals, TV offers. The royalties are flooding in. I'm sure you must be the same, right?
Wait a minute. You're getting book deals? Hey!
No, I'm absolutely joking. Absolutely nothing has happened. But I've had a bunch of really nice comments. So quite a few people have got in touch and they've given us some really, really nice remarks, really nice friendly comments back, very positive. So really appreciate that. So it's nice to know that people are both listening and enjoying what we're saying.
Recently, we promised we would talk about the physical reality of building a biotech company. So we've been highlighting Scotland's $25 billion life sciences target. We've talked about smart startups. And of course, we've talked about how Scotland has this incredible patient data store. But today, finally, we're addressing what I would call the concrete ceiling, which is the wet lab bottleneck.
Yeah, it's the ultimate paradox, I guess, Ross. We're working to get better at spinning out companies from our universities here in Scotland. But when a biotech founder gets their seed funding and is ready to hire and scale, they look around and they realize there is literally nowhere to put their microscopes. Unfortunately, we have a huge shortage of specialist laboratory space.
Yep. So today we're going to explain why building a lab is actually very different from building a tech office. We'll look at the crazy costs driving startups out of the golden triangle of London and Cambridge. And we'll discuss the big 55 million pound public-private intervention, which is happening right now in Scotland to fix this crisis. So Sandy, you know what time it is. Down with the roll. Let's get into it.
Indeed, Ross. Yeah, and probably let's start with the basics, right? So, pretty much from my world, a tech startup, they need fast Wi-Fi, they need some desks, maybe they need a table tennis table, some scatter cushions. I guess the very best desire is sushi chef, right? But let's not go there. But why can't a bio entrepreneur just rent a standard office space in Edinburgh or Glasgow and just set their equipment up there?
First of all, you have a sushi chef over there? All right. Well, so the answer, of course, is that biology is messy, thinking about the sushi chef. We work with potentially very dangerous stuff, and everything is actually very sensitive in a way that we'll talk more about. So when we talk about a wet lab, we're really talking about spaces designed to handle chemicals, biological matter, and liquids, things like that. You just can't put a biotech startup in a WeWork.
Yeah, but what is it that makes a wet lab so structurally different, Ross?
Well, there are, I could divide it into, say, three things: air, water, vibrations. Okay. So first of all, the HVAC systems. It seems like a small thing, but actually it's not a small thing. So in a typical office, it recycles its air, but in a wet lab, you have dangerous fumes, you have biohazards. You need to move 100% of that air outside, and you need to do between 6 and 12 complete air changes per hour just to keep the scientists safe. So there's that. Secondly, you have your plumbing. Okay, you need specialized drainage systems for chemical waste and access to deionized water. So there's a lot of specialization going.
And you also mentioned the vibration. Tell us about the vibration.
Yeah, so I grew up as a microscopist back in the day, and so I know a little bit about this. And actually, this is the part that a lot of times real estate people miss, but it's pretty key. So, and the thing you have to remember is there's a lot of very sensitive, delicate machinery that are being used. So if you have a startup, you're doing precision medicine, Maybe you have next gen microscopes that are hypersensitive. Maybe you have mass specs. I know there's some new mass specs companies just coming online. If a bus drives past that building or, the floor flexes just slightly when I'm walking by you eating my sausage roll, that vibration can actually really mess with microscope imaging experiments. And actually, we spend a lot of time trying to just get that vibration out of there. So, what does that mean? The floor loading capacity, the vibration criteria for a wet lab are actually very different from a standard commercial building.
Right. So you've explained it. It isn't just about fitting out a room. It's about building a really robust space, which is able to survive failure.
Yeah, exactly. I think a key point that sometimes we miss, and I know there's some politics going on back in the US about interruptions in the biology and the long term impacts that can have. And the reason that scientists get upset is because biology really hates interruptions. Um, if the funding goes away or the power goes out overnight, you have freezers that are full of samples, you have cell lines, reagents, you have years full of work. You can't just make those magically go away and have them come back when you want them. So that's why serious lab space, you need backup power, you need alarms, monitoring, contingency systems. We always have backups to our backups with our precious samples. So a wet lab is not just a bit of real estate, it's basically a living operational system.
Yeah, and because the specifications are so intense, I guess developers they're pretty hesitant about making that big investment to build them speculatively, right?
Yeah, exactly. So wet lab space is, as you can imagine from everything we're just talking about, it's a lot more expensive than office space. Startups are risky. They're not really in a position to sign a 10-year commercial lease. And so developers don't always want to take that gamble. This has led to a big time crisis down south, as we have talked about in the Golden Triangle, London, Oxford, and Cambridge. Really, demand has very much outstripped the supply. And in fact, I was down in London recently looking at their efforts to try to solve this. It's going to be very expensive and it's going to take a while. So, research shows that lab rents in Cambridge are going to hit over £80 per square foot this year. It's probably going to be well over that in the next few years. At that, if you do the math, and you're better at this than me, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're absolutely right. It's completely unaffordable for a spin out that's just raised its seed round funding. It's probably even very difficult for those that are at the Series A stage, right?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. And so if you compare it globally, Um, if you look back in the States, you look at Boston, you look at Cambridge, in Massachusetts, they have millions of square feet of lab space. It's constantly in development. I see these cranes out there all the time. I see how they're really backed by really big institutional capital. So Scotland has world-class talent. Look at us at a lower cost than the US and London, hopefully not too much lower. But we don't really have the benches for them to work at. And if we don't have that, if we don't make that, and we'll talk about how this is getting better, so no gloom and doom. But if we don't continue to build out, we really do risk a brain drain. It's great for you and me to talk about, hey, how to make new biotech companies, but we have to keep the best and brightest here. We don't want them relocating down south. We don't want them going to the US, and I know that this has happened. We want them to stick here and find a home, but they actually have to have a home.
I guess this is the bit where, in the pod that we start to switch it around and think about the commercial response. And because we're now in early 2026, as you've mentioned, Ross, we can see that the Scottish ecosystem is really starting to fight back quite hard. By the way, before we go much further, I guess one of the things that we've talked about, and it's making me reflect, talking about capital and funding rounds has reminded me that we probably need to do an episode to help explain funding rounds and maybe try and demystify that whole finance framework. Talk about pre-seed, Series A, Series B, etc. Anyway, back to it. the Scottish
Yeah, I
ecosystem.
think that's
We're
brilliant.
fighting hard. We're fighting hard, Ross, and we're coming back.
No, I think that's great, great idea. It certainly took me a while to wrap my head around all of these, and honestly, I can talk for a while about the sort of special niche of building a biotech space. But for me, the cool part about being on today's podcast is to actually hear from you. So, Sandy, economic hat on. If you can't get developers to just build speculatively, oh, we will build it and they will come. How's Scotland going to solve this?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Ross. And we can see that the government and regional authorities they've really woken up and they've recognised that infrastructure is the bedrock of the innovation economy. And what we're seeing now is an injection of capital. We saw this first with the Glasgow City region. They just launched a £20 million fund that's specially dedicated to expanding the wet dry incubator laboratory space that is so badly needed. And to put this into perspective of the why, health and life sciences sector in Glasgow now supports over 10,000 jobs, which is an increase of 47% in this sector in employment, and that's just in the last few years, so 2019 to 2023. So we're literally bursting at the seams here.
Yeah, yeah, we really are. And it's not just Glasgow, right?
That's right. It's a kind of national push. So we had Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes. She also recently announced just in February, £25 million life sciences accommodation programme from the Scottish Enterprise. And they've even published a life sciences fit out guide to help demystify the complex building processes that you mentioned, to try and help landlords and investors really understand that problem. But the most exciting news happened just a few weeks ago, right? Because the Health Innovation Hub has just officially opened its doors in Govan just last month, their big month of innovation to celebrate. So that's March 2026.
Yeah, we were there, right? Um, and I think even no, we didn't get your personal sushi chef, but there was some food there. Okay,
Yeah,
so
there was some nice food.
yeah, there was. And anybody who gets a chance, I would definitely check this out. The HIH is really a beautiful facility. I really like it.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I missed the sort of big launch on the first day, and we had and Wes Streeting was there to officially open the centre, which was a big deal for everyone that's been involved. So it's an 87,000 square feet state of the art lab. With the office space has been designed by Cadan's science partner in the University of Glasgow as part of the Living Lab programme. That's the program that you and I, Ross, have been so heavily involved with in these past few years. And looking at who's moving in, it's quite an exciting list, right? We've got Panthera, a major clinical trials company that's expanding its operations here. We've got Lee Cronin's digital chemistry spinout Chemify. They're taking space at the HIH, and that's something that we're really pleased and really excited about. And if we look at the kind of wider offering around Glasgow, we've also got places like BioCity Glasgow, which is run by the Pioneer Group, and altogether they have a 20-acre pharma-grade incubator facility. It's an ex-MSD research site, and they're able to provide MHRA licensed control environments, including cryostorage that startups could never afford to build by themselves.
Wait, so the strategy is to build shared, highly spec hubs rather than having each startup basically design its own lab?
Precisely. It's the incubator model that you and I have talked so enthusiastic about. You share the heavy infrastructure. So you were talking about the air handling, the waste management, security. So those are shared services so that the founders can really spend their time focusing on their venture capital, on the science, and not that plumbing you were describing.
Hmm. So, okay, Sandy. So I'm a young bio entrepreneur, probably more hair than I have now. A little more naive, but I need advice. What's the advice you would give me if I'm currently working out of a laboratory lab, but I really want some commercial space? I've got a great idea, want to start a company. Give me your best advice.
Yeah, so my advice would be to look at the ecosystem that's around it, not just the square footage. Don't just lease an empty industrial unit in a business park. Try and get into the locations that we described, the BioCity, the Health Innovation Hub, or even the Edinburgh BioQuarter. Yes, these might be competitive to get into, but you get the knowledge spillovers. You're sharing space with other founders. You've got access to investors. You've got access to clinical trial recruiters. The network helps you to accelerate your fundraising, helps to accelerate your develop. You can do it more cheaply. You're not isolated in a warehouse in some business park, and you really want to try and avoid that isolation. Plus, and probably this is the biggest draw for our budding founders, right? There are other factors. I'm sure you get a much better coffee in the spaces that we are just describing rather than some industrial unit. Of course, I'm joking, Ross, but you kind of get the picture. Coffee's important as well, right?
I was going to say, you're joking. What are you talking about? I've made a lot
That's
of,
probably the most serious part.
I've probably made a lot of bad decisions just based on the coffee I had access to. So, I do think that's excellent advice. I'm gonna just go in a little bit of a run on here, which is, it's not just about the buildings. It's definitely about proximity to other smart people, and that actually works both ways. So it's important for me to go into a space where I can get smart people, and I actually learned this. I've opened companies in different towns, and the access to high quality scientists really, really matters. I can tell you that in detail. But it also goes the other way around, which is in order for these um, spaces to be successful, there has to be enough of them so that there are enough workers, so that there are enough companies in that space. So I will, as a young worker, will move to that space so that if this company doesn't work out, I can just go over here into this new company. This is actually a big reason why, places like Boston and so on do well. It's not just because they invest in it, which is important, but it's because a lot of scientists, young scientists, have the confidence of going into that ecosystem because they know they can bounce through the different companies until they find one that really sticks. So I think your advice is dead on, and it's important to look not just at that what the square space looks like. It is important with the coffee, but definitely that you can get into an ecosystem that provides stability and smarts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Ross. I think environment is so important, and if you're working on diagnostics, if you're working in precision medicine and clinical trials, the other advantage of being near a hospital really counts, right? So you're close to pathologists, you're close to patient recruitment networks, and that can be a huge advantage. It's not just about renting a bench, it's also about being close to the flow of biopsy samples, clinicians, trials that will help the company to move faster. And this gives you two things. It gives you the physical connection, and that leads to opportunities for what I call deep collaboration. And it also gives you ecosystem insight. So just from being there on the ground, you see things, you learn things, you identify additional opportunities that you might have overlooked. The first makes the science and the engineering challenge more tangible. And that really explains why the clustered science hubs work. And they're simply more than just prestige.
Yeah, no, I think that is such important advice. I cannot, echo you more. That is important to think about. It's because what happens, especially when you're starting your first company, is you get excited and you just grab at the first space that's offered. And especially if we don't have a lot of offerings, you tend to just grab what's there. But it makes such a difference to the health and long-term viability of your company to get it nestled in a place where you're giving it an opportunity to succeed. I think everything you said is 100% right. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we're so excited about the Health Innovation Hub, right? Because we spent a lot of time thinking about, that location. There was a lot of thought that went into that location, triangulating it between the university and the community and the hospital. That's been really important. So there is still space there. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering where to set up in Glasgow, go and check out the HIH. It's a lovely facility.
100%. And I'll just say very quickly, and then we can move on. That's a big reason that I'm here, that I moved in here from New York, is this connection to the hospitals, having a lot of our buddies who are clinicians also are scientists in a way that makes it very easy to connect through to the hospital and even just physically have the hospital so close to the HIH. All of this was sort of laid out to me and said, hey, you're not going to find this just everywhere. And I realized, no, actually, that's true. So, yeah, totally.
So I guess we've thought about this in some detail. We've spoken about this some detail today, Ross. And having too many fast-growing companies is a good problem to have, and it's great to see that we're really putting the money in. That combined £55 million is really going to hit the market and help to solve that problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So now it is our time. And you know what? I just want to say that I really, this is such an important discussion. And as you say, we need to deepen this. But now it's time to get out of real estate and close the show with our favorite segment, at least my favorite segment. I think our favorite segment, a wee bit of joy.
Yeah, and Ross, and I'm hoping you're going to take it away this week and break into this first. So, what's brought you joy this week?
Well, I did warn you, this is going to be a little, well, actually a little weird. But it's going to be visually great. I'm going to put some pictures up. So, and that's just me foreshadowing. So for my wee bit of joy this week, I'm pulling you and everybody into the latest and greatest in truly weird music. The world has suddenly become completely obsessed with a new band called Angine de Poitrine. And Sandy, I have to say, I am here for it. They are great. And I just want to point out, this is something that you can hit your kids with and show how cool you are, okay? So because they'll get hit with it in a few weeks. So you're getting the early thing on this. So angine de poitrine it translates somehow to chest pains, like angina.
Yeah.
Right? They're a Canadian experimental math rock band from Quebec. And what brings me such total joy, and you kind of have to see them to really appreciate this. So I hope everybody who's listening to this goes and looks them up. Because what I love about them is their absolute commitment to the bit. They've now settled on these absolutely wacky, oversized paper mache polka dot masks. They've got polka dots all over their hands and feet. They've got these bizarre giant noses that come out. They've got full body paint, polka dot, everything. And so when they're performing, it's completely anonymous. And honestly, this joke exploded. And basically, I'll drop a picture of them. But in addition to being a bit of a joke, they are good, like really good. I mean, the guitarist is insane. They describe themselves as I have to look it up here, a mantra rock, Dada Pythagorean cubist orchestra. So what they actually are is some, I know, that's why I had to read it. So basically what they are is some weird fusion of like acid techno, disco, heavy rock, but they just do it really, really well. So there's two of them. The guitarist, he plays a double neck microtonal guitar. So what microtonal means is it has more than the usual frets. So you play the usual notes, but also the notes between the notes, right? And he does it brilliantly. The drummer, I'm not even going to get into the description of the drummer, but he locks into these insane, shifting, crazy grooves. But what really got them to go viral, this is my punchline. They did a live session on the Seattle radio station called KEXP. I don't know if you've ever followed this, but they have a lot of music on KEXP. And you can see it on YouTube as well. We've been following them for, I don't know, decades. And now, in April 2026, they're selling out venues worldwide. Tickets are going for crazy amounts and so on. So, Sandy, here is my parting question on this. If Angine de Poitrine come to Scotland, are you up for checking them out?
I certainly am. I mean, that just sounds incredible. I mean, the mixture of music and art, just that blows me away. I've got to say, I've got slight alarm bells ringing. It could be a little bit Eurovision, but I'm imagining that the standard of the music is much, much higher from what
They
you've
might
described.
win Eurovision.
I'm going to show my ignorance of Canadian rock music, but this could be the biggest thing since Rainbow, right? They are Canadian, aren't they?
Absolutely. I don't know. Who's yeah,
Okay, well
I don't
that's
know.
going to
You got me
be
on this one.
there's going to be a few comments there if I've got that
I
wrong.
was thinking, going through all the Canadian groups. Why don't you take this away before I start obsessing over it?
Well, no, that's fantastic. That was fantastic. I guess I'm going to have to bring it back down to earth after that, Ross. I can't compete with that this week. I've got my wee bit of joy is quite simple for me. Going back to the kind of golf theme, and for everybody listening, the whole concept of this podcast was hatched on the golf course. And we continually come back to that because that's our example of patience and hard work and the long game. And I was lucky enough to be back up in Granton and Spey just recently for the last few days. My wife and I, Helen and I, we went to two new courses which we'd never played before. The first one was called the Spey Bay on the Murray Coast. So what an incredible location, right on the beach. It's a big sort of rocky, stony shoreline at the mouth of the Spey, with these big rollers coming in from the North Sea. It was quite a windy day, but I guess that's what you get with a golf course by the sea. Spectacular views, incredible, and we just thoroughly enjoyed it. It's quite a simple clubhouse and stuff. It's not elaborate, but very very welcoming, and we had a great day. Really enjoyed it. So much so that we decided, and because the weather was great up there, we'd go and play golf the next day as well. And we went into Aviemore. There's the old Del Faber resort there, which is now part of the McDonald's Hotel Group. And the golf course there, it's a championship level course.
Wow.
Okay, it's called the Spey Valley, so Spey Bay and
go.
Spey Valley,
Mhm.
both ends of the Spey. But yeah, again, what a course. And the views were incredible. Right next to the River Spey, the first 5 or 6 holes next to the river. Beautiful. All with a view of the Cairngorms in the background, covered in snow. It was just
Oh, wow.
incredible. And I wasn't playing too badly both days. In fact, Helm was playing really well as well. So we thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great. Great to relax, refresh, and recalibrate. Lovely. Really good.
That's amazing. How was your driving?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, there was a couple of holes. We had a single player behind us, and with the two of us, we were playing a little bit slower, so we stopped to let him through. And somehow I just lost my rhythm, and the next drive was bad. 1 out of 17, or 18. That's not too bad. Yeah, on the whole, pretty good.
Well, if the person who was behind you is listening to this podcast, please drop us a note. We have a conversation to have
I
with
never
you.
thought of that. Damn.
Oh,
I'm sure he's not ever going to listen to this podcast. But here's the thing, right? The fifth hole in this course, it was a par five. Just have a guess, Ross. How long do you think that par five was?
I would go.
Give me a number.
400.
Yards.
Whoa!
It's a monster.
For a par five?
Absolute monster. Yeah, absolute monster of a par five.
What are you putting with
great
your
fun.
with your wood?
Yeah, no, and I was on the green in 3, so I did pretty well. It was good. It was good.
Wow. Okay.
And
All right.
and
That
beautiful.
is really impressive. Well done.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done.
I'm not going to tell you my score overall,
We don't talk about
but
scores
yeah,
here.
that
I think
hole. We could talk about that hole. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
Sandy, that's fabulous. You always had to go to these amazing places. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. Hey, listen, everybody, many thanks for listening to The Long Game. If you're enjoying this series, please share it with a colleague, leave us a review. You can follow us. We would appreciate any of these as we bring this podcast up and running.
yeah. Thanks, Ross. And next week we'll be starting like a two-part series looking at AI and healthcare, starting with how it helps to solve problems in our current system. And then we'll marvel in the second part around some of the new, really incredibly impressive AI tools that are coming out and coming online. So something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And we'll have some interesting interviews also coming up. And so please keep track of us. Until next time, everybody, keep the heat. I'm working on it. And everybody, best of luck playing the long game. Ciao.
So long.
Yeah,
Bye.
see the vision clear. We're here to run the long game. Blueprint set, no fear. Playing out the long game. The long